Hello student, how are you? I am Arun sir. Welcome to my channel Tuition Expert. Today in this class, I'll teach you the derivative or differential coefficient of a function, meaning of differential and differentiation. So today's class is only on the meaning of derivative of a function or differential coefficient of a function. Student, if you watch my video regularly and follow my class attentively, then I can assure you that you must crack the IIT exam confidently with a good rank. Now let's start about the class. Suppose the function y equal to fx. For example, we take the function y equal to 2x plus 1. Now if x is increased to x plus delta x, delta x delta x is increment of x, and delta y similarly, delta y is increment of y. Delta x in capital form, or sometimes it is written as delta x. This is in capital form and this is in small form, so both meaning are same. Increment of x is denoted by delta x, this form or this form. Now if x is increased to x plus delta x, then y also be increased, and y is increased from y to y plus delta y. Okay. Now what is the y plus delta y? Y plus delta will be x plus delta x, obviously, because from the definition of function, if y equal to fx, suppose fx, then y plus delta y equal to f of x plus delta x, because here we increase the value of x to x plus delta x, so y becomes y plus delta y. So delta y equal to f of x plus delta x minus y. This is x plus delta x minus y. What is y? Y is fx. So delta y equal to this. Now delta y to delta x will be minus fx to the delta x. Okay. Now what is the meaning of derivative or differential coefficient of a function? Derivative of a function is denoted by dy by dx. This is nothing but the ratio of delta y to delta x. Condition is when delta x, that is increment of x, tends to 0. This is the definition of derivative of a function or differential coefficient of a function. So delta dy by dx, that is, this is studied as derivative of a function with respect to x, is only, it is the ratio of increment of y to the increment of x. Condition is that delta x tends to 0, that is increment of x tends to 0. So this is the ratio of increment of to the increment of x. Condition is that increment x should be tends to 0. Any ratio of any increment to y to increment of x is not denoted by dy by dx. Ratio of the increment of y to the increment of x will be dy by dx. Condition is that if the increment of x tends to 0. So this is the definition of dy by dx. This is the definition of dy by dx. Del y to del x if del x tends to 0. This is delta x tends to 0, del y equal to del this f of x plus del x minus fx to delta x. Now if delta x is denoted by term h, which is a very small quantity, so dy by dx will be limit h tends to 0 f of x plus h minus fx by h. So this is the definition of dy by dx. dy by dx studies as derivative of y with respect to x, or it is studied also as differential coefficient of y with respect to x. So this is studied as this. Now for example, what is the meaning of dy by dx? Suppose for example y equal to 2x plus 1. Now initial value of x equal to 1, so y becomes 2 into 1 plus 1, that is 3. This is for x equal to 1, y becomes 3. Now if x is increased to, suppose x equal to 1.001, now what is the y? Y becomes 2, that is 3.002. Now suppose this is initial value x1 and y1, and final value x2 and y2 is this. So what is delta x, increment of x? Increment of x is this minus this, which is this, and delta y, increment of y is 3.002 minus 3, that is 0.002. Now here delta y to delta x equal to what? That is 2. Now as the delta x is very small, that is 0.001, which is tends to 0, so we called dy by dx equal to delta y by delta x, as delta x very small, which is equal to 2, So if you know the derivative of y with respect to x, dy by dx equal to what? 2. So by this example we also prove that dy by dx equal to 2. What is dy by dx? We try to understand. For an example, y equal to x square plus 1. So y equal to fx equal to x square plus 1. Now first we put the value of x equal to 2, then we increase the value as 2.1, 2.01, 2.001, and so y becomes, y or fx, y becomes, for x equal to 2, y becomes 5, and x equal to 2.1, so 2.1 into 2.1, that is 4.41, so this becomes plus 1, 5.41, and for x equal to 2.01, if we put 2.01, then y becomes, suppose 5.0401, and this, for this value, suppose y becomes 5.004001. So this is the value. Now if we increase the value of x from 2 to 2.1, what is the value of delta x? Delta x becomes 0.1, and then delta y becomes this minus this, 5.41 minus 5, which becomes 0.41. Now for this interval delta y to the delta x becomes 0.41 divided by 0.1, which is equal to 4.1. Now if we increase from this to this to this, then y becomes this to this. So for this interval delta x equal to this minus this, delta is equal to 2.01 minus 2, that is, and delta y becomes 5.0401 minus 5, that is. Now for this interval delta y to the delta x will be this by this, that is, which becomes 0.0401 by 0.01, which becomes 4.01. So now mark this value. For this interval value delta y to delta x is this, and if we increase the x from this to this, then the ratio becomes this, delta y by delta x ratio becomes this. Now if we increase the value of x from this to this, then y becomes this to this, minus 2, that is 1, and delta y equal to minus 5, which is equal to 1. So delta y to delta x equal to this by this, which becomes 4.001. So this. Now here we observe that if the increment of x becomes very small, that is tends to 0, then delta y by delta x ratio tends to a finite value. First increment, for increment of x 0.1, for increment of x 0.1, the ratio of delta y to delta x 4.1, and for increment of x is 0.01, the value becomes 4.01, and if the increment of x is become more small, that is 0.001, then the value of delta y to delta x 4.001. That is, if delta x, that is increment of x, tends to 0, then the ratio delta y to delta x tends to a finite value 4. First 4.1, 4.01, then 4.001. So the ratio delta y to delta x tends to a finite value, and this finite value is 4. That is, this value tends to the value 4, that is এই ভ্যালুগুলো 4 এর কাছাকাছি যাচ্ছে। যদি আমরা x এর ভ্যালু ইনক্রিমেন্ট অফ x যদি খুবই স্মল করতে থাকি, তাহলে এই ডেল্টা ওয়াই ডেল্টা এক্স এর রেশিও 4 এর কাছাকাছি যাচ্ছে, টেন্স টু 4. সো দিস ভ্যালু is dy by dx. From the definition of dy by dx, this value become dy by dx. So dy by dx becomes 4 dx. As delta x becomes very small, that is tends to 0, then dy by dx becomes 4, and we starts from x equal to 2. So at x equal to 2, dy by dx becomes 4. Now if we know the derivative by formula, by formula, what is the dy by dx? Dy by dx, we know x to the power n formula is 2 into x to the power 2 minus 1, that is 2x. Now dy by dx x equal to 2, 2 into 2, that is 4. So by formula this becomes 4, and 2.01, 2.001, that is if the increment of x becomes very small, then dy by dx ratio, that is increment of y to the increment of x ratio, becomes also 4. This is the meaning of derivative. So the derivative is nothing but it is the ratio of increment of y to the increment of x. Condition is that increment of x tends to 0. Increment of x should be tends to 0. This is the definition of dy by dx. So from the definition we get this value becomes f of x plus delta x minus fx by delta x. Now if we put delta x equal to h, then this becomes f of x plus h minus fx by h. This is the meaning of dy by dx. Now dy by dx is written as dy by dx. Now y equal to fx, y becomes y equal to fx. So dy by dx is studied as f dash x, or it may be sometimes it is y1 or y dashed. So all the symbols stands for dy by dx or f dash x. Now if second order derivative d2y by dx square, then dx whole square, d2y of dx square, this is written as f double dash x or y2 and y. So this symbol stands for dy by dx, and the meaning of dy by dx is this. So derivative and differential coefficient of y with respect to x, derivative and differential coefficient of y with respect to x is called dy by dx. The meaning are same. Derivative and differential coefficient meaning are same. Now what is the differentiation? What is the meaning of differentiation? Differentiation is the calculation of limit h tends to 0 f of x plus h minus fx by h. Now this calculation, that is calculation by limit formula, calculation of this function with the formula of limit, this calculation is called the differentiation. This is called the differentiation. That is process of calculation is called the differentiation. Now what is the meaning of differential? So differential of y means only dy. Differential of y means only dy. Differential of x means only dx, that is dy, as y is the function. Dx means change of x, but this change of x very small. Change of x becomes very small, that is tends to 0. Change of x becomes very small, that is del x tends to 0. Change of x, so dx equal to delta x when condition is that delta x tends to 0. If delta x tends to 0, then delta x is called dx, and dy also this is change of x, change of y, change of y if condition is that if delta x tends to 0, as y is the function of x, y is the function of x, so if delta x, that is change of x, is becomes tends to 0, then change of y is called differential of y, dy. Now dy by dx we study it is as derivative of y with respect to, this is called with respect to x. Similarly, suppose dy by dz we read as, we study as, this is derivative of y with respect to z, dp by d, suppose dp by dz or dp by dy we study as derivative of p with respect to y. So we study in this way. Now next, geometrical interpretation of dy by dx. We know y equal to fx, suppose y equal to x square or y equal to 2x plus 1, these all are y equal to x cube, all are represents a graph. Now what is the meaning of dy by dx, what is the meaning of dy by dx in this graph? Now we will understand the meaning of dy by dx in the graph. First, try to understand what is the slope of a line. Slope of a line, slope of a line means, suppose this is x axis, y axis, and this is a line. This line makes an angle theta with positive direction of x axis, and 2 point on the line is x1 y1, x2 y2. Now what is slope of the line? Slope of the line is denoted by m is equal to tan theta. We know the slope of the line equal to tan theta. Theta is the angle of the line with the, which makes with the positive direction of x axis. Now 2 point on the line is this. What is the slope of the line? Slope of the line will be this. If this is theta, then this becomes theta, this becomes theta. Now this is y2 minus y1 and this becomes x2 minus x1. So tan theta equal to y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1. So this is called change of y is denoted by delta y and change of x is delta x. So m equal to delta y by delta x. Take 2 points on the graph. Take 2 points on the graph. Suppose this is point P and this is point Q. Take 2 points on the graph. Now this coordinate is x, y, and these coordinates become x plus del x, y plus del y, x plus delta x, comma y plus delta y. So join P and Q, join P and Q. Now delta x and delta y, this should be delta, this is delta y. Delta y means y2 minus y1, so this is delta y and this length is delta x. Now chord PQ makes an angle theta with x axis, so this angle also theta. Now tan theta becomes delta y to delta x. Now if delta x tends to 0, so if we change delta x, that is if the increment of delta x tends to 0, becomes very small, so delta x becomes very small, so q approaches the point p. If delta x tends to 0, then point q tends to the point p. q point p এর কাছাকাছি আসবে, delta x tends to 0, q approaches to point p. Suppose if delta x very small, suppose q becomes very small, so q should be here, and if the delta x become any more small, then this, so q point approaches to p. If del x tends to 0, then q and p become same point. If delta x very small, then almost p and q are same point. So q and p point coincide. So now q and p, so p and q coincide to each other, and the chord becomes the tangent, at p. Now the chord pq becomes tangent to p if delta x tends to 0. Chord pq, the point q approaches to point, and if delta x tends to 0, then q and p will be same point, and this chord now become tangent to point p. Try to understand this chord qp becomes q approaches to point p, and if delta x tends to 0, very small, then q and p will be same point. Now the chord qp will be the tangent at the point p, so the slope of the, so dy by dx, we know limit delta x tends to 0, delta y by delta x. Now what is the delta y by delta x? Delta y by delta x equal to tan theta, that is slope of the line. Now this becomes slope of the tangent, so tangent is a line, so this becomes the slope of the tangent, equal to slope of tangent. So this is the meaning of dy by dx from the graph. So final result is of tangent of the graph at any point. So this is the result. This is the geometrical interpretation of dy by dx. Student, this is the end of the class. To get such type of videos, subscribe my channel. Okay.